Hi, welcome to the video. So I'm going to go over the dates of Daniel's 70th week. If you go to the description below, there should be a Google Drive link to the PDF, and it's interactive. If you bring your cursor upper right hand corner, you certainly have my permission to download it. So this is a bit of a process to get the date, the actual dates of Daniel's 70th week. So some of it I discovered by accident. So I was studying the dates of the consummation from AD 66 to AD 73, where I took Josephus' works, book 2, chapter 17, paragraph 1 to 10. I got the date from there, August 14th, AD 66. That's the cessation of sacrifices, which is what I was looking for. And then the day after is the beginning of the 1335-day prophecy of Daniel 12:12. Then after that, Revelation 12:6 to 12:60 days. That brings us to September 22nd, AD 73. That was their last day, John 6:44. So, so I figured that out, and then I did the time times and half a time. But what I did was I took. So picture this 40 years later, this timeline here. So this is AD 26 to AD 33. Okay, so this picture 40 years later, so AD 66 to AD 73. So the 40th anniversary of the crucifixion. All right. So what I did is I laid out the Yom Teruah, the feast of the fall feast, and I laid out each year what the dates were. And then all of a sudden, light bulb came on. Wait a minute, because what I realized was in AD 73, the Yom Teruah was split in half to 10 days. There's only 5 out of the 10 days. Like, God, that's odd, you know. And I thought, well, okay, the last 5 days on Earth, the first 5 days of the Yom Teruah, and then they went to eternity, the following 5 days. Okay, kind of makes sense. And then, so I laid them out, and I'm like, wait a minute, time, and half a time. Oh, okay, that's where the half a time comes from. And sure as heck, the date match. So, so then I was able to make the connection, and that allowed me to solve another date that I was looking for that I would never get. And then it made sense to me that it also applied to the 70th week 40 years earlier. Alrighty? Yom Teruah has to do with judgment, and it all makes sense. So I laid it out here. So you have AD 30. Now I have a crucifixion date video here. That was a process to get. There's a time I believe 30, AD 30, AD 31, AD 33. Okay, and then finally I said, okay, when did he actually die? And then I was able to get the answer. So it was actually AD 30. Now a lot of people are going to be led to believe AD 31, understandably so, but I encourage you to watch the crucifixion date video. It was actually AD 30, not 31. This is one of those things where 99.9% correct here and then 100% correct there. It's so close with the other side. So anyway, so when we go back to times and half a time, applying to Yom Teruah, we end up with September 5th. And so I have here a visual calendar of the Gregorian on the bottom and the Hebraic on the top. So you can see the shift in time between the two calendars. So 6 p.m. the Hebraic is the start of the next day in the Hebraic calendar, the Jewish calendar, and midnight is the start of the next day in the Gregorian. So you can see the shift. So the first day of Daniel's 70th week was Tishri 6, and the first day in the Gregorian was September 5th on Saturday. Now, in the Hebraic calendar, 6 p.m. being started the next day, they actually used to prepare for later on when the sun does come up. So sunset, they prepare for the Gregorian calendar would be the next day, but they didn't perceive it that way. We're preparing for sunrise. Okay? So during this time, in all likelihood, Jesus would have been praying, and he would baptize sometime here. And I would have to say the 9th hour. That's my guess. The reason is, when you look up 9th hour in the New Testament, it repeats itself. Anything significant happens, it's always 9th hour. So I would not be surprised if it was the 9th hour in the afternoon when he was baptized. I could very well be wrong. That's speculation on my part, but I notice that God does things in patterns. And so, and that's one of the benefits of trying to narrow down the date so hard with precision depth level down to the hour. When you get things accurate, that's when you start to see patterns, pretty cool patterns. So anyway, so he'd been baptized here September 5th, which is Saturday, is a Sabbath, and you can read about that here in Matthew. And then earlier on, John the Baptist prepared the way. You read those in those passages here. So I believe those 5 days was the 5 days that John the Baptist prepared the way, which fits the context of the Yom Teruah. Remember, he said, "You brood of vipers." Okay, the axe has already been laid down under the tree. That fits the context of Yom Teruah. All right, so it fits theologically the Yom Teruah and the dates. All right. So anyway, so that's the beginning, and we have the crucifixion date, and then the end. So we go time times and half a time, and that brings us to, let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's see here. That was on Friday, September 16th. That was their last day. And then when you add one day, it goes into Acts chapter 10. The gospel goes to the Gentiles, the Cornelius household. You can read it in Acts chapter 10. It's a Sabbath, alrighty, which is the same pattern when you look at the 7-day weekly format, same pattern as the consummation. Whereas they were raptured up on September 22nd, AD 73, which is a Friday. Next day was a Saturday. Gospel goes 100% Gentiles from that point forward. There might be some people with some Jewish blood in them, but every single person who had 100% Jewish blood as of September 23rd, AD 73, is that Saturday, were gone. Alrighty. So the 12 apostles, they were gone. They already left for eternity. That was day number 6 of the last Yom Teruah. So they were gone. So it repeats the same pattern when you look at the weekly 7-day weeks. Friday, their last day. Gentiles, Saturday. Same thing 40 years later, based on the fall feast. So everything evolved around the fall feast here. So anyway, so those are how I got my dates, and I am very confident. I have sifted through this like you won't believe, correcting, and it took me a long time to reach this point. This is not a 5-minute study. All right, it had taken me taking advantage of thousands of hours of this person over here, $1,000 this scholar here, and then thousands of hours my time, and finally piece this together. And so one thing, and by the way, the video that you're watching, there'll be a link to it right here where it says video link. Okay. So one thing that I want to point out, a huge mistake amongst preterists, is they have done that calculation of 40 years. They've added to only 30 AD, 30 plus 40, 70 AD, done. Breathe, right? Wrong. That is a huge error that's being taught in the preterist camp. It is not as simple as just taking that 1 year and adding 40. There you go. You get 70. It's actually the entire framework of the 70th week from AD 26 to AD 33. That framework is what gets added to 40 years to get 86 to AD 73. I know if you're hearing that for the first time, you're like, what? No, it's AD 70. From AD 70 to AD 73, that's when the law of Moses was fulfilled. And that's also where the man of lawlessness was killed on April 8th, AD 73, 30 miles away from Jerusalem. So that is the connection with Jerusalem that is made, where when the Jews who came to Christ fled on the Thursday afternoon, April 10th, they fled the temple. At the same time, Elzer, the lawless one, he had fled with them, and he ended up in Masada, whereas the Jews who came to Christ, the sealed of Israel, I believe they went to Petra, right? So not everything was fulfilled until September 22nd, AD 73, and then the new heaven, new earth, September 23rd, 8073, where they were gone, and from that point forward, it's all Gentiles. So, yeah, so I give you the reference here, Josephus' words, where you recognize 8066 and then 8073. Now Josephus continues on in other areas, but there's no connection with Jerusalem at that point. So, so the war of the Jews between Rome and Jews in Jerusalem, according to Josephus' writings, from 8066 to 8073, which matches the consummation, the scriptures from 8066 to 8073, which matches, subtract 40 years to the end of the 70th week, from 8026 to 8033. Okay, so it all matches. So I have a calendar converter right here. Once I recognized the actual crucifixion date, which was a huge gold nugget, to say the least. Then I was able to use that as my calibrator for whatever calendar converter I was using. There's a lot of bad calendar converters out there. So this one is good. You click on it, and voila. So this is what I use. And so if you want to back check my work, go ahead. Just remember Tishri 1. You just have to go back here. Tishri 1 is the first day of Yom Teruah, and then Tishri 10 is the. So let's just go through this here. So let's go with 80:30, okay? And we're gonna go to Tishri. There's Tishri now. I'm gonna go back 1 month and go forward the days. Speed it up. There we go. Tishri 1. So Tishri 1, the first day of Yom Teruah for year 8030. Okay, so we go to year 8030, and September 14th. September 14th, it matches. And then you want the last day of the Yom Teruah, you go to Tishri 10, which is September 23rd and September 23rd. All right, for 8030. All right, so yeah, and I encourage you. Oh boy, if I can emphasize this. If only the Predators camp would use the correct calendar converters, use this one. I just saved you a lot of time. Use the calendar converter. It is correct. All right? And that's how they're able to get everything to fit together. Everything to fit together. But one problem, though, with Josephus, he was not consistent with the type of calendar he was using, then used the common. Which let me pull that one up. See if I have it in here. So yes, common. So that's this one here. All right. So I don't have it in the other one because I didn't feel it was necessary. But this one needed, based on Josephus' work, because he was not consistent with what type of calendar he was using. That made it a bit of a challenge. And so, so yeah. So now you know how I come up with the dates, and I'm hoping eventually more and more predators, whether partial or full predators, will recognize, wait a minute, when we add the 40 years, it's not just 3080, but the entire framework of the end of 70th week gets added based on the time times the half a time of the fall feast, Yom Teruah. All right, thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you continue to enjoy your studies, and you have an awesome day.